Welcome everybody to Hot Program. I am your host with the most from the East Coast. Did you send me an introduction?
I sent you plenty of them. So I'll do it myself as I say to my staff. I'm just gonna do it myself. Don't worry about it. Let's see. I got a lot of them. And now a man who once thought Lee Strobel's The Case for Christ was about selecting a 24-pack of wine for communion. A man who needs no introduction.
My one black friend, how's it going? My bad. I'm sorry about that. It's been a long weekend. Lots of work, not enough sleep. I'm sure you've had plenty of those.
I am thoroughly sleep deprived, and I would be sleeping right now if there weren't more important things to do. And I got work stuff. I unexpectedly had to work yesterday. I didn't want to. And my boss was like, "You don't want to go, do you?" I'm like, no. I'm tired. I'm tired and I'm done. And I've amazingly haven't quit that job. So I went in because that's what the team needed. And I had a very productive day. We had a productive day. And there's more that I brought back to the hotel with me because we need more productivity.
All right. Well, speaking of super important things, I think we've got a great episode lined up. So first, our topic today that we will get to, I'm sure. Let me pull it up here because there it is. Boom. Are Christians subconsciously making the world a worse place in order to increase suffering? Because suffering is a sign that God loves you. But before we get into that, we have a very special guest with us today, my man Statton. I first met Statton over on, I think the first time we ran into each other was actually on Danny's channel, right?
I think it was Pine Creek.
Oh, was it Pine Creek?
And then it transferred over, I believe.
Oh, okay.
I believe it transferred
that
over.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense because I think you were on Pine Creek's first, and then when we were on Danny's, we started talking about still playing music in the church.
That's where I got the contact information and how we connected.
All right,
from Danny's channel.
So popping up on all these other channels has finally yielded some good for us, but
fruit.
Some fruit,
one might
exactly.
say.
Some fruit, exactly. So
reaping the harvest.
This is my co-host, my one black friend. He's also a former Christian, and I don't know that much about your story, and I deliberately tried to avoid asking you because I just thought it'd be better for us all to have the conversation. This is sort of a first for us. We are a sort of a new counter-apologetics show. And I'll just go ahead and tell you, I've been frustrated with this whole community because I get this feeling like it's all a game to people. And that's fine if we're going to be content creators in this space. We got to understand that the YouTube machine needs to be fed. People want to see the shows and we make a show, so we'll do that. But I'll be honest, I get bored quickly because it feels like everybody's having a conversation. It may or may not touch upon something interesting, but it isn't going anywhere. And I feel like a lot of times that's because nobody has anything at stake. Both sides are sort of firmly entrenched in their camps. And while it's admirable that they're willing to hear one another out and have a candid conversation, if there really isn't the potential for anybody to be moved or influenced, I check out after a while. But I'll tell you one thing that really motivated me when my one black friend and I started talking about the idea of doing the show. I like to just have fun and have a good time. So certainly just spending some time chatting with him was worth the price of admission. But really what motivated me was the conversations I've had in my life with other people who were either recently left the faith and sort of still working through, what that means for their life in a practical way. People who are maybe transitioning or wrestling, or a lot of times people who are in the faith still firmly, but either have doubts or have questions or simply want to really engage people who think differently than they do and try to understand them. And I find that those conversations get me like up out of bed. I'm here for it. Call me anytime you need me. No conversation is too long. No hour is too late. No hour is too early, because I feel like I went through that process for myself, and it was hard, and it took years, and it was rough, but I learned a lot along the way. And then when I found this community, all the content creators, all the books, all the things I started learning, I realized I had all these resources. All of a sudden, if somebody mentioned an argument to me or a particular issue they were struggling with, I had all these content creators and all these. I could say, "Oh, do you want like a scholarly thing? Here's a book you could read, or here's a lecture series." Hang on a second, someone's knocking on my door. What that was? So probably fans. You know how fans get. But no, seriously. And then I started to feel like, okay, well then maybe if they just need something a little gentler, like here's some short videos or something a little more user friendly. And so, yeah, the idea of maybe having more of those conversations and being a resource to people was really motivating to me. And when I heard your story, I kind of felt like I could really relate to this guy, because I felt like I was there, and I felt like you were like reaching out to us in a real way and like asking real questions and just trying to, see what's up and talk to some other people that had been through the process. So I just want to thank you for that openness and that genuineness, and then for following up, right? We always say to people, hey, we're here, talk to us, we'd love to talk more. Sometimes you catch somebody on a panel and it's like the end of the show, or you call in late, or they're about to leave, and it's like you catch them in passing and you're like, oh, hey man, we should chat some more. So I always put my stuff out there. But it's sort of on somebody to take the initiative to reach out and say, hey, I'd actually like to follow up and talk some more, and you did that. So thank you so much for doing that. I think that was super awesome. And as soon as you reached out to me, I was like, nope, let's do it. If he wants to talk, let's get him in right away. Let's do it. And we'll kind of roll with it and see how it goes. So I'm gonna shut up. With that being said, I'm gonna let you just take the floor and tell us our audience doesn't know you. I don't know you that well, so just pretend you just met us off the street and just tell us a little bit about your journey, where you're at, and I guess I'll let my one black friend get in there with his questions, and we'll just take it from there. Relax if you want to have a beverage or something, whatever makes you comfortable, man, but we're just happy you're here.
Yeah, well, my name's Statton. I'm a Pentecostal. Here in California. I am a musician. Music is my passion. Bass player, learning guitar, and I play in the church, and so I'm I'm born and raised in it, and so it's I culturally identify with the church and things of the church, like ever since I was young. And so everything is church for me. Everything, like I was always taught to like tie everything into it, like your job should be connected to the kingdom of God. If you're having a relationship, it should be of God. The whole normal thing that a church going person does. And so that's pretty much sums out my background, I guess, as far as related to this topic. So yeah, if you want to start asking questions, we can start getting on a sort of an interview.
All right. Statton, welcome. And again, and thank you for your time. and your thoughts. You said earlier you're on the fence. Can you talk about what
Oh
you
yeah.
mean you're on the fence? What does that mean to you?
Well, okay. Well, actually, I think that was Jay that said that.
Oh,
But
Jay, okay.
I so for a long time, like I said, I was born and raised in it. So this is me. Like this has always been my norm, right? The church has always been my norm, right? And so it was I think it's probably been about a year and a half from where I started looking actually starting to research why I believe what I believe in, like or certain issues that are like, I actually, funny enough, I was actually looking into Mormons that were deconverting, even though I'm not Mormon, and why they were deconverting or like becoming like atheists. And so some of the reasons kind of got me onto that, like, oh, well, this is like some of this stuff that I thought was like really rock solid might need to be take a second look. I might need to take
Right,
a
right.
second look at some of this stuff. And so I did, and that kind of it was kind of a can of worms that I opened up that I had never done before for lots of reasons. Just because it's sort of out of fear in a lot of ways, just because you don't always want to know the right answers to some things. In some ways, like
This is true.
it's an unknown of. Well, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, how did you come across the Mormon stuff? And that's kind of interesting because I think for me, I was searching. To be honest, I was searching for the historical Jesus, and I think it was a, a lot of what you said, the it was sort of this idea that I was culturally Christian, and I was trying to figure out, especially because I think I was really developing my interest in anthropology. So I was trying to figure out who Jesus the man was, and what could we really know about this person, the period he lived, the culture, and all that. And that's sort of what led to my journey. But once I was sort of along the path somewhere, that sort of outsider test of faith thing became really powerful to me. So it's interesting that you came across sort of a version of that right first, and that got you questioning. Do you think that made it easier at first, maybe in a way, because you were thinking about sort of somebody else's
Yeah,
faith, and then there's almost like, oh, hey, wait a second type of thing?
yeah. When it's a Mormon and I'm not Mormon, it's like, oh, well, of course they're deconverting because they're not in the truth. It's
Hmm.
like you're not really surprised by it, I guess. But when
Okay.
it's your own stuff, like, I mean, I guess it's in a way it's kind of the same thing because I guess maybe they're a version of Christianity, but they're not Pentecostal, so they don't have the full
Right,
truth
right.
in my perspective. You know what I mean?
Right, right, right.
And so, like, if it was the same video coming from a Pentecostal perspective, probably would have been hard for me to take that jump because I'm like, oh, well, what does this guy know? You know, like from my previous self. Now I would listen to it because I've kind of already popped that bubble, and
Right,
I don't have
right.
that. There's I'm able to. I'm not afraid of knowing what's gonna happen next because I've already kind of discovered a lot of ideas that I was previously very uncomfortable to explore.
No, that
And
that that makes that makes a lot of sense. Go ahead, Mama Black Friend.
Well, um, so are you at the point where you don't know if you believe there is a God, or at the point where maybe there's a God, but it's not the God of the Bible? Um, what's your stance about that from a Christian point of view? Are you walking away from sort of the Bible being the core of information about a God of the universe?
Yeah, good question. Certainly Bible inerrancy and Bible reliability is a big factor in that. And it's basically, I was not aware of the details surrounding those issues prior.
Okay.
At least not to the extent, of what it really was. It put a extreme monkey wrench into my plans of like being of just trust. It kind of made me lose trust in a lot of ways in what I was grown up thinking. So right now, I would say, to answer your question, I don't know. I definitely can't say affirmatively yes. 100, like I definitely am there. I wouldn't say I'm at the point where I can say there's affirmatively no, though. Like,
Okay.
I'm definitely in the middle on that issue. I would say I'm undecided. As far as there being a God. Now, whether there's the Christian God is true. Oh, man, honestly, as much as I hate to say it, I think I probably am starting to lean closer to that is not the case.
Okay.
That like I'm more leaning to that as far as on the scale. I don't, just because of, well, I mean, I guess it's a lot of things. It's not just one thing, but like, Pine Creek talks about like the whole poof or drown type situations, that type of morality framing, and not that I'm just using that as an example, but like the morality examples is like it doesn't, it's not, there's a lot of inconsistencies that I see that seem to conflict, and it's just I simply haven't been able to reason it. And if
Sure.
and that's not to say that it's able to be reasoned. I haven't really come to that point to where I can say it cannot be reasoned. And if it can't be, then it must not be true, And so, but I just haven't gotten to that point yet, And so, as it is now, I don't see I don't see how it could be true, personally.
Okay. Are you seeing as you might hear a scripture or read something, do you feel that there's a distance growing between your morality and the morality of the Bible, of the God of the Bible? Which, let's be honest, it depends on the day what you get from that God.
True.
He can be inconsistent with what's said and what's done.
That is what it seems, yeah. I would say, well, it's interesting you bring that up, because it seems that practicing Christians of today don't truly get their morality from the Bible. They seem to sort of pick which morality they want to adopt.
A la carte.
And so, if they truly said whatever God does is moral and truly lived by that, I really don't think they would look like they do today.
They would be arrested in most cases.
They absolutely would. And so it's just so I don't see my morality really that much different from practicing Christians. I mean, it might vary, but and also, so that also means that over the pulpit, they're probably not going to be talking about that stuff. You know what I mean? They're not going to really be addressing the morality of God and the hard questions that are being brought up. At least I don't ever remember hearing that stuff, because it's new information to me. All this stuff and actually looking at it, you know.
I've never heard a sermon about not murdering someone. It's sort of implied, don't murder other people.
Well, or don't commit genocide, or don't you know, don't hate gays because, you know, or I mean, well, actually, okay, I have.
No, we see people condemning, out promoting,
Yeah.
you know, people condemning gays.
Yeah.
Well, I have to hand it to my church. They actually are trying. Like, I actually heard my pastor say over the pulpit that we should, like, don't be making bad jokes about, you know, about homosexuals or gays or LGBTQ, because, you know, that's not Christian. And so there are Christians out there that are trying to bridge a gap there, and they're not all bad. And that's something I'm trying to look at it as, or ease the process as much as possible, because I have seen amongst some atheists where they kind of are a little bit too presumptuous in certain areas where, like, they, just because it's wrong, or just because what they believe is false, they're also immoral and wrong in all these other areas that we might not be completely sure about. And it seems to be a little bit disingenuous, or maybe too presumptuous, you know? And so I'm trying to give people the benefit of the doubt in a lot of areas, especially if I don't know.
Sure.
Because there's a lot of Christians that believe a lot of different things. Muslims, you know, different, all other types of religions, you know.
Can you talk a little bit about, you mentioned being in church all the time, and I think that there's such a spectrum, right? And I come from a family of generations of Pentecostals, and I think it makes a huge difference when you deconvert, because for some people, when you say, well, I'm leaving the church, and it's like, well, what does that look like for you? Well, if you went to church, you know, Christmas, Easter's, Mother's Day, then, you know, it might look like, you know, there's a couple sweet old ladies you'll miss seeing a few times a year. But if you go to church every Sunday, that's one thing. If you go to church every Sunday and then you attend a Bible study once a week, that's another thing. Now, if you're like me, and you'll see where I'm going with this, if you're like me and you're somebody who's really involved in the church, then you might be at church on Sunday. You might have Bible study one night a week that you're there. You might have college ministry on Thursday. Okay, wait, hang on a second. I'm not done yet. You're on the worship team, so that means you're at the retreat. That means you're at the conference. That means you have band rehearsal probably at least one day or one night a week. Then on top of that, you got to be there probably like an hour or more before church starts for setup and sound check and all of that, and all the stuff afterwards. And that's not counting all the informal stuff, right? Let's go grab a coffee. Let's go out for beer, right? And so I want people to just get a feel for that. For some of us that are more heavily involved, when you talk about walk away from something like that, we're not talking about something I do a couple times a year, right?
It's part of your lifestyle.
Yeah. Go ahead. Talk about it in your case.
Yeah, I mean, what you said is very, very similar to my situation. Like, so this is as far as church, I go to church, you know, Sunday morning, which is, I just came from it. Sunday night as well. We have 2 services on Sunday. So, you know, we can't just do one. We got to do 2. And so
yeah, big church, big overflow. Yeah, that's right. You turn the whole thing over. Yeah, go ahead. This is real talk. Keep going. Yeah, it's great.
So
in a moment, I will abuse you, Statton, with my question.
Go ahead.
All right. Tuesday night we have, you know, midweek service. Wednesday night band rehearsal. Thursday night youth band rehearsal. Friday night is usually our youth service. And Saturday and Monday are pretty much my only days that I'm usually not doing anything related to church. But
Yeah,
there'll be all those times. There are also times where we, go to the church, hang out, play some games or whatever,
yeah, and
or
I can't
Monday nights we go play sports or something.
Yeah, I've been there with all that playing, and I used to work at a church. I was on staff as a youth leader and the summer camp co-director and the tutoring director for the after school program. And so, to be honest, I'm gonna be 100% honest with you. We made fun of people that only came to church on Sunday morning, because we
Yeah.
felt like if you came to church on Sunday, especially in a church like that where we were so community oriented,
Yeah.
it was like you missed the whole thing. Right, we got an
like, where
after
you at?
school program, we got a youth center, I always tell people, look, we're a Monday through Saturday church. You show up on Sunday morning for a couple hours, you ain't getting nothing but a hymn, a little sermon. We gonna dunk a couple people in the water and call it a day, But it's Monday through Saturday that we really do church. You know what I'm saying? That we really do what this church does. And another thing that I often think that ministers and even sometimes people that go to church, congregants, don't understand. They sometimes think that musicians, yes, we have fun, right? I always tell people my rock star mode is actually rock star mode, and it's really fun to be in the worship team, be on a platform and stuff like that. But I think if you do this mental exercise in your head and you say, how many hours does a given person in this week? How many hours a week does a given person in this church dedicate to this church, right? And there's some surprising people on that list. Like, you'd be surprised how much time the people that clean the building spend in that building.
Oh, yeah.
Right? You'd be surprised how much time the tech and the setup people are there. You'd be surprised how much some of the ministers are not there. But if you did that list and you ranked them all in order, right? Because now with the worship team, you got to give them credit for all that practice time. I always say the listening time. I always say, I'll blow your mind, because most people want to be the drummer on Sunday, or Thursday night for work. I say, I'm the drummer for this church 7 days a week, because I rarely have a day off given my need to practice. And then even when I'm not practicing, if I'm on my way to work or if I'm just at the gym, I got to listen to the music, right? Because, we got to memorize everything. So, and you only got a few days to get from week to week. So to make sure you're really sharp. So it's almost perpetual, right? Yeah. And so it's like, I want to tell people, being a church drummer sometimes 24/7 gig. And so I just want people to sometimes appreciate when we're talking about deconverting or walking away from our faith, we're almost like pastors walking away. You're talking about somebody that is dedicating so much of themselves to this church. It is not just we was fans and now we got a new favorite band, so we ain't gonna buy your t-shirts anymore. We going with our new band's t-shirts. It's like, no, we're talking about something that is deeply, and so I almost sometimes get insulted when people don't take what's at stake for us seriously. I'm like, how dare you? Because you have no idea how much I put into this. And I'm just really happy to have somebody on who could really speak to that reality.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how much our stories are similar. Because I'm in a situation to where I literally have zero reason to want to leave. Like,
right, totally.
I have like more. It's really the opposite. Like, just about every indicator tells me I should stay in here, and I don't see myself leaving the church, like, as far as never coming back, like, right, like, I in the foreseeable future, at least, like, because of the kind of what I've been stating is, like, it's just so much a part of me, and the culture and the community, my family, I'm super close to my family. It would really affect the relationship.
Do you all go to the same church? Because I know you had mentioned you talked to your dad about it. So is it you, your dad's sibling? Can you tell us about your family?
Yeah, so I have two brothers. One of them is also a musician in the church, so we're very close. He's a piano player, and so and then I have another brother and then a sister,
Mhm.
and then all my family is in the church, except well, my brothers and sisters, parents, and grandparents on both sides. My cousins don't. They actually have walked away from the church. It's been years now, but they're the only ones that are in my immediate family that aren't in church.
What's your relationship with them like, and have you talked to them about this at all?
Oh yeah. Well, okay. So when I say they're not in church, they're not Pentecostal. They're all Christians still, but we don't really. From Pentecostal perspective, it's all the same. Really, I mean, it's not really all the same, but they're all going to hell essentially, in our
You mean
perspective.
it's
And
all
so
it's Pentecostal or bust? It's like they're
it's
not
if you're
fully
not Pentecostal,
saved.
you're
Yeah,
not in the truth, and so it's like
yeah. I think
that's
in
what we see.
conversations with atheists are the only time. Uh, uh, I think when they're in conversation with atheists, it seems to be the only pronounced time that they're like together, right? If it's not opposing the atheist, it's sort of like,
Yeah, I guess
you know,
atheism is
there's
sort of in its
it's the
own
no true Christian
category.
fallacy, I guess.
Well, like yeah, okay, yeah. So, well, as far as my relationship with them, it's great. Like I mean, we haven't like we're not a church that practices like shunning or anything like that. Um, um, so I mean, I've always had a great relationship with my cousins, even though they've walked away.
Mm. Well, I think it's good to maintain the relationships, Statton, and I think you're at a very important part. I can say where you are parallels to I'd say a greater degree of involvement. You had a greater involvement than I did. I was in the parking ministry. I enjoyed sort of seeing some of those faces. And yeah, as Pocketlocker mentioned, there are those old ladies I just love saying hello to, and people I'm giving hugs to, and the babies of friends and things like that.
Right.
I knew if you walk away, you're not going to see these people so much. I stayed for years,
Yeah.
and I just want to give you, because I'm a weird atheist, I want to give you a scripture. Okay.
Okay.
I'll
All
probably
right.
give you several. Believe me, I got something that blows this one out of the water and contradicts it basically for someone in your situation, so, or the people
Right.
around you. But I don't want to talk about that, because I think sometimes um, when we reference this or that from the Bible, you can really do somebody a disservice. And I want you to be aware one can be done, but I don't want to do it. So in John 13:34-5, Jesus says, a new command I give you, love one another as I have loved you. So you must love one another. By this, everyone will know you are my disciples if you love one another. So as I hear you speak, it's not simply an obligation to be there in church. You have a desire to be there because of the deeply profound connection you have with your family and your friends there. That's more valuable. That's more, from what I'm listening, that's more valuable than a relationship with God, the relationship with peoples. Please correct me if I'm wrong, or is that true?
Is as far as I want to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is definitely true.
Mm-hmm.
I'm there because I want to be there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not forced to be there, or I mean, I'm out of my parents' house. I don't. I'm not. I could leave tomorrow if I wanted to. I mean, it's not like they're gonna. I'm not. There's nothing stopping me from just
Mm-hmm.
leaving necessarily. But yeah, like you said, there's so much there that I want
Yes.
to, and I'm happy. Like I'm not. And not to say that I wouldn't be happy if not in the church, but if I'm happy now, I don't see why I should change it. I
I'll
don't. I
agree with
mean, like
that. I'll agree with that.
Yeah, I would too. Sorry, I have a air conditioner going. Before it was the computer, but it makes so much heat I had to turn the air conditioner on. I was sort of going to ask you about this. Was, do you feel like you necessarily need to go anywhere? Like, I think you're kind of in an okay place. Like, I came to a place where I was just okay saying, hey, I don't necessarily believe the core claims. I still want to participate in the church this way. I mean, to be honest with you, I swore off playing at churches for a long time, which really had very little to do with theology and more to do with the fact that a bunch of them had like promised me money and then not paid me the way they promised me they would, and I was tired of that. I didn't like having to like confront ministers about money. I just felt I was outgrowing that phase of my life. I'll put it that way. But eventually I just decided, like, even now, I think my motivation for, still being involved in playing in a church is just, I like it. I enjoy it. It's fun. I find it to be rewarding and meaningful. I find it incredibly meaningful as a science educator to be engaged with people who have, challenges or issues with the type of science that I teach. So I always think that means it's a great opportunity for me. Go ahead, my own black friend.
For all of the churches you work for that didn't pay you, Deuteronomy 24:14 and 15, do not oppress a hired hand who is poor and needy, whether he is a brother or a foreigner residing in one of your towns. You are to pay his wages each day before sunset, because he is poor and depends on them. Otherwise, he may cry out to the Lord against you, and you'll be guilty of sin.
Yes, I mean that's that was really kind of a thing for me. I think a lot of churches.
You didn't tell them that, did you?
No, I didn't. I needed to. You see, that's where my not studying the Bible came back. No, you know what?
Paid ever.
You know what I decided when I went back? I decided was the problem was churches that said they were going to pay me and didn't, or said they were going to pay me X and then didn't pay me that. When I came back, I was at a church where everybody volunteered, and so I didn't mind all of a sudden. Now, I still think that churches like that need to pay their musicians. The reason being is basically the conversation we had before. At the church I was in, there's a lot of money coming in. It's a big church. Right. And if you did the exercise, if you did the thought experiment I said and listed in order of hours, who spends the most hours dedicated to the ministry, if you took the people that spend, the amount of time that the worship team does, none of those people are volunteers, right? So you might have, like, let's say your the people who do pipe, you got pipe and drapes people, right? They set up all the sets and the curtains and the stuff and the tech stuff and the screens. You got your sound team. Yeah, a lot of those people volunteer, but they put in 5 hours a week total, maybe. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, they show up, they got to be there early, they got to stay late, but whatever. When you start talking about people that are putting in 20, 30 plus hours a week for the church, none of them are volunteers. All of a sudden you're talking about staff. You're talking about, the secretaries, the ministerial staff, right? And so, at least in my church, that was kind of, thank you. What did it say?
I turned it up. Scott's said,
I turned it up.
My volume is lower. So
your volume was low. Got you.
Gain up on this.
Yeah. So yeah, that's just kind of my point. But anyway, I decided that we can choose to volunteer, right? That's a thing people can do, and it's ethical if people decide, hey, this is something I want to do with my time. So yeah, but yeah, man, I really appreciate your story. So yeah, I was just asking you, do you think you need to go anywhere, or are you kind of good where you're at? You think?
Honestly, yeah, I'm good where I'm at right now. Like I don't know.
Yeah. You're good, my friend.
Okay, Statton, here I am to make you uncomfortable.
All right.
What did you learn in church today?
Oh, well, they talked.
It's a great question.
Well, it's Father's Day, so they had a Father's Day message, and they were talking about it was actually really interesting because I was actually thinking about what he was talking about. He basically was talking about following the Father, or he was talking about like the word patriot and expatriate. So like a patriot is actually referring to somebody that is founding a path, right? And if you expatriate, you're leaving that path, right?
Interesting for you, yes.
Right. And so but it's really interesting is how he was referring to, like, we should go to, it seemed to be a call to adherence to tradition, which is also interesting because sometimes you hear the opposite. Like, we don't care about what the tradition is. We want to know what the truth is. So it's interesting, but so whenever I hear that, it's always what always comes to mind is, what if that tradition happens to be something you don't agree with? Like, sort of, I guess somewhat in the realm of outsider test of faith. Like, if this tradition was like a long lineage of Muslims, you would encourage them to not follow that and get outside of that tradition and be converted to Christianity, right? Or from our perspective. And so it makes sense in this context, but that is not transferable to everyone. Like, like this is a service that's being preached to the congregation and this audience. So in the audience, it makes sense. But but we're also, we broadcast our stuff live, and so everyone can see it. So it seems like that would be something to think about. But it's interesting. It's just interesting. Yeah. I'm sorry. I
We
can't
can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
All right. That's so strange. I think it was using the
I turned
computer
you
mic.
up too, so
You
you're
did?
yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks, Scott, for the. We need that outside input for audio.
Yeah, I turned him up.
Well, so I'm sorry. Did he reference the Bible much, or did he just sort of riff on his message? And
Yeah, he did he did go. I can't remember what the scripture was that he used, but yeah, they usually always start out with a scripture. But I could go back to the message and figure that out if you want me to. But
no, it's quite all right. I often found it strange of how I could tune into like a Greg Laurie or something like that, and he'll begin with one or two scriptures, and then it's sort of like watching me play golf. The ball goes straight for a while, but then it sort of does this, and you and good luck finding it where it went. So I think that's very common where they go right into personal stories and leave the scriptures behind when there's so much there. And I would think most of these ministers know how few people out there in that congregation have read what they are discussing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And maybe that's, look, they went to ministerial school, a lot of these people. Maybe that's why they do it, because they know these people have no idea what's in that Bible.
Oh yeah,
they just know the stuff that's been.
Well, you have to remember, for most of the church's history, that was deliberate, right? I mean, it was, they read the Mass in Latin, right? Like, I mean, that wasn't a move. It was like the common folk can't. It's not good for them to have direct access. So to be honest with you, I think the Protestant Reformation is dead, right? But in the sense, we're still, the dream of it hasn't fully been realized, right? Like, the church never realized that it was a revolution, this idea that, like, wait, you didn't have to go through the ministers. You had the Bible. Not he has the Bible to read to you. No, you, my one black friend, you, Statton, You have the Bible.
Yeah.
You go home and you read the word that God has for you, right? That's some new modern stuff, right? It used to be, no. You can't, this is like midsummer, right? You got to let the interpreters go in and they can read the sacred text and chant the scriptural chant for you and then interpret it for you, and that's how you receive the word of God. So I think, we talk about this a lot, how Christians don't read it. And I think, and you can relate to this maybe, I think with Pentecostals especially, there's a lack of reading it because I think it's seen as a tool to fixing something that isn't broken for them. Like if the Bible is a tool to teach you the story of Jesus so that you would, John 3:16, be saved by coming to believe in him. If you already do that, then like, do I really need to go study the Bible? Right? Because there's a point to the Bible and I already got the point. So like what, I should probably go do some new Jesus stuff rather than read the Bible for 18 hours. You already converted me. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's interesting because I actually do feel like people do read the Bible in my church.
Okay.
What's that?
No, I was just going to say it's very interesting because I feel the same way. The church I played at, I would say, is a Bible reading church. Not to the level I'd like and maybe not the way I'd like, but they do their devotionals, right. They read their Bible, they take their Bible study during the week very seriously. I'll tell you what kind of church I'm in. When the pastor says for the new visitors, hey, new visitors, I just want you to get a feel for what the type of culture you're in. Hey, how many of you guys here by show of hands are in a connection group, right? And that's the name for our like Bible study groups that meet once a week. It's going to be 80+% of the entire congregation, right? Because being in a group, a weekly Bible study is that deeply ingrained in our church culture that when we see each other, if I ain't seen you in a while, like my first question will be like, oh, whose connection group are you in? And if you're like, I'm not in a connection, we'll be like, we got to get you in a connection group.
Yeah,
and honestly, we mean that, right?
Our church doesn't do that currently, but we actually there was a preacher that had come that kind of, they call it small groups.
Small groups, yep.
And so they are actually going to try to start enacting that in our church.
Bro, got to do it. You got to do it. Yeah. You got to go. It's the best.
Yeah, honestly, really, I'm pretty. Yeah. It sounds like fun, honestly.
Yeah, it's super fun. There is a lot of like, you study the Bible, but you got to remember, right? Like, y'all were all just in church together on Sunday. So it's not like super hard. Like we were all there. We all heard the scripture. We read it. It's kind of nice because you get to actually talk about it. Because I'd be kind of frustrated sitting there. You're just sitting there listening the whole time. You do have thoughts and questions and you don't really get to say anything. So it's nice to talk. There's a lot of bonding. And then we did a lot of stuff together. Like, watching football games on Saturdays. Every one week a month, we kind of did like, we had guests come in. So people would just bring friends and we would just socialize and do game nights and stuff like that. Super, super fun. I would definitely highly recommend it.
So you're still involved as yourself?
Yeah, the only reason I stopped going was because of COVID. So I still haven't, and by that I mean I haven't started doing anything with.
You haven't gone back yet?
Yeah, but I haven't gone anywhere. I haven't gone to restaurants. I haven't gone to movie theaters. I haven't done anything that involved. I haven't gone back to teaching on campus or going to work. I still work from home.
You think you will?
I think as soon as I'm ready to be in public again, I'll be back in church. Yes.
All right.
Yes. That's the plan. I miss it.
I miss it. I would like to ask you one more question.
Yeah, ask me anything you want.
Like, how did you go about as far as like, there's some things that I just don't know how, like personally, like if everyone there knew what I was actually thinking and like going through and my thoughts,
right,
and where I stand on some issues,
right,
it would dramatically change my perception, right?
Yeah.
So how do you personally maneuver that?
So things change, right? Like it's it's very weird because I'd say like when you come up the way we did, you're in the church musician culture as a true believer, and in some sense you have a natural antipathy or a certain amount of disdain for like people who might just be in church bands to play a gig. And you probably don't know many of those because it sounds like you go to a pretty big church with a lot of musicians, so that means they've always got plenty of musicians, and most of them are probably members of the church. But there is that culture, certainly coming out of black churches and a lot of like high-end, like professional type gigs. You run across a lot of people that are just there to play and they're not really believers. And to be honest, coming up, I kind of didn't like them, and I thought they were like destructive to the church. Yeah, because there was a certain degree to which they didn't take things seriously, and I thought that didn't help the decorum of things. Like I'd get really irritated if I was at my grandfather's church, for instance, and I thought the drummer was goofing off or not dressed properly, or God forbid I didn't think he was tight or didn't practice or wasn't ready. That kind of thing made me like, ready to come at his throat, especially because I'm there once in a while to visit at that point, and I'd be like, you doing my grandfather like this every week? We're gonna have to have a little sit down. You know what I mean? That's not okay. So I get that, but most churches you'll find are happy to have your services, even if you are open about not being a believer. The other thing I would say is that it's a whole different story if it's your home church that you grew up in and your family goes to. You might make a decision like, well, I'm going to sort of be a closeted agnostic or something like that in this situation, and that's fine. That's just you making a what I call like a decision about your social safety, right? Like this isn't necessarily a safe congregation for you personally to be out in because there's so many personal ties and stuff like that. The other thing I would say is not everybody has to know. Like in my situation, I was honest with the minister about it and the worship leader about it, but it's not something we openly announce publicly, right? And I wouldn't want them to, because that would make a distraction. I'm not there to be a distraction. I'm there to be the best worship drummer on the fucking planet. Literally, you know what I'm saying? And the idea of people wondering about my belief or non-belief, to me, is just not what they should be thinking about when they're looking at me on Sunday morning, right? So I'm not there to be a distraction in that sense. Now, I'm honest with people, so the people that come to get to know me personally, eventually it comes out. Some of them are surprised. Usually, a lot of times I find that they're not surprised because of the way I've asked questions or things I say over the time. And I'm an evolutionary biologist or whatever, so they kind of piece it together. So mostly they're okay with it. So you might decide, like I do, it's kind of a case-by-case thing. You know what I mean? And I just mentioned all that to say it might be different if you say 5-10 years from now find yourself maybe through marriage or moving or whatever in a different church, where you might feel, okay, I'm a little bit more comfortable being out about it because, it's not going to get back to my mother, or I don't have to worry about, the old ladies that watch me grow up crying and calling me, it's not that, so you it's different. You see what I'm saying? Like you got to play it a bit differently depending on the situation. It's still hard. Like there's people in my family that I don't really know or get it, and I'm not.
Family will never get it. They'll never get it.
Yeah,
they'll be. And when I say they won't get it, they won't be okay with it, but they'll still love me.
Yeah, same.
But like
same.
I never fear that from my family. I already have family that have walked away, and we love them, and we treat them the same as we ever have.
Sure.
But and so I know that it wouldn't be different for me, unless I do something stupid and get them all mad, which I'm not.
Right.
But I'm not gonna be a bad person. I'm gonna be the same person as I am.
Yes.
It's like I think a lot of times people think, oh well, how are you gonna know what's right and wrong? It's like, how do I know what's right and wrong now? It's like,
take it with you.
It's like, to be like we were talking about before, people choose what they want to believe out of the Bible now.
That's right.
You know, even if they
That's
don't want to
right.
believe it, even if they won't admit it. And so what I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to choose my objective morality, my opinion on morality, and be real blunt with it. It's like everything's your opinion, really.
I want to speak to something else just because I think you're a real guy, and I want to offer this to you and take it for what it's worth. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but it's kind of the way I am. Remember I said I had a certain disdain for musicians who were there just for the gig and not true believers. To be honest, I really had a disdain for fake Christians and soft Christians. Yeah. Even the Sunday people, I was just always like, man, if you come in here Sunday and then like, you know, because I came from a family like you, like it was constant, it was everything, it was all the gifts, it was just everything. And so that's what true Christianity was. And if you had a more convenient version, I was like, yeah, that's probably something I should leave alone. Yeah. And so now I've had people I've even been like dating, and when I've met them, I've tried to tell them like I'm pretty much like an atheist Christian, and they'll be like, "What do you mean? That's not a thing. You can't be that way." And I'll be like, I'm an atheist. I don't believe, but I'm still involved in the church. I still love my church friends. Church is very important to me, or whatever. And they would basically not believe me, and then eventually they'd spend enough time with me and get to know me and come see me at church, and they realize, oh my God, you're always with your church friends, you're always at church, you're practicing for church every day, or it's like you're still a Christian guy, you're just a radical atheist. And I was like, yeah. And so they asked me basically, like, how do you fake it? If that's the thing, like, how can you do that and not believe? And I said, as weird as it sounds, I don't.
Yes, I don't think you'd be faking it, and I think that's good advice for you too, Statton. Don't fake it. You have legitimate questions that have hard answers, or maybe the people you ask don't have an answer. I would encourage you to still ask those questions, because you may find that someone that's rather beautiful to you or meaning you and helps you navigate where you are right now spiritually. And it's important that you process your doubts. This guy, Alan, I used to go to church with, he would say, you have to doubt your doubts. And I'm like, ha, 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 ha.
Yeah, you got to doubt your doubt. There you go. We talk about that. Yeah.
I'll do that, and I'm gonna come to you with it. I don't know how you're gonna like it, but the doubt is strong with this one. The doubt is strong.
Right.
So in doubting my doubts, I got better questions. In doubting my doubts, I became better informed, and in doubting my doubts, I became even more certain that I had very good reason. To doubt.
Into some of the practical day in and day out stuff, especially from a musician standpoint, it's like, some of the specifics, it was like when we pray and when we stand in a circle before we go on for worship and we pray, I said, I pray, and then I've always had a time where before I lead in worship, I always pray with the drums. It's something I've always done. It's something, I started as a Christian drummer, and I still go through the same thing, and I just genuinely say the prayer. I don't necessarily believe there's a God to answer that prayer, but I also don't believe there's a God for punishing me for sincerely praying to a God I don't believe in, interestingly enough, right? So, and then when it comes to like playing the songs and playing the worship, like I think this is such a meaningful experience for the people that we're leading in worship. It's such an honor that they would give me that opportunity and trust me with that responsibility.
Yeah.
I want to make it the best I can. And I hate watching drummers who aren't into it. If I watch a drum, right, I hate that feeling. If I go to my grandfather's church and I don't feel like the drummer's in, I literally want him to get up and get off the drums right now.
Right.
Like literally get up and get off the drums right now. And so I don't want to ever see myself being that drummer. So I'm like, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, boom, I'm totally 100% into it, so that I'm doing that. And so I know that the gig is leading people in worship, and so I'm worshiping with them, and I'm just in that moment. And to be honest, the fact that I'm I don't believe it or that I have my doubts, that's none of my business it's none of their business at the time. And to be honest, it's none of mine. It's just not what it's about right then. We could have that conversation some other time. But if you find that that gives you meaning in genuinely participating, I'm just saying for me, I still participate. I still try to do that as genuinely as I can. I know a lot of people are going to be out there saying that doesn't make sense or I'm being extremely hypocritical or whatever. I'm just telling you how I get through life as an atheist worship drummer.
Yeah, and like I mean, I've prayed for my friends like in the altar when they go to pray and they're they're trying to, like, I go over there and I'll pray with them.
I have a saying, which is, we about to dunk these fools in the water. And that is because in my church, baptism, especially like the college ministry, right, is such a huge deal because for a lot of the college students that we have, this is their chance as young adults to proclaim to the world their faith, right? And so sometimes their parents come from all over the country or out of state and their family and their friends come. And we go to like, we have some pretty well-off people in our church. And so we always go to their house because they got the big house. And it'll be like 200-300 people in a house. I mean, just packed, right? And wow. We'll just be in the garage with the steel tub, right? Everybody around, like singing songs, eating, partying, crying, telling their emotional stories. And I am so happy. I'm like, people are like, are you coming to the baptism? You think y'all gonna dunk these fools in the water and I'm not gonna be there? You're crazy. You're crazy. I'm there early, often, every single time. I'm at the conference. I'm at the retreat. Because like you said, these are the things I was going to mention our pastor, like after a good service, and he tells me, Jay, man, you killed it today, man. We just love what you do. I said, man, you gave a great sermon today. I don't believe what he's preaching about, but the conviction he does it with, the way he's trying to shepherd the people, I can, as a person who's sat through a lot of sermons and heard a lot of ministers say, hey, man, I appreciate what you do. Great sermon today. We mean that, right? We're friends. We enjoy our time together. And so I think people just got to realize life goes on. It's more complicated than any of us ever thought it would be or could anticipate. And I think sometimes the best experience in life comes from just being okay with that and be like, hey, this is a mess. Probably doesn't even make any sense, but I like y'all like me. That's good enough for now.
Hey, just to FYI, I got like 5 more minutes.
Yeah, I know you got to run. I remember you told me 4:30, so I appreciat you.
Yeah, definitely. Well,
we'll do this again. Just reach out. Yeah, we'll set up part 2.
Now, Statton, I have a few more questions.
Yeah, hit him with a lightning round.
How can atheists be better examples as you deal with this potential transition?
Good question.
It's a great question.
I would say don't hate Christians. Like, even though you don't agree with them. Like, most Christians, even though I would totally grant that there's probably some people that are actually evil out there that are Christians, but a vast majority of the congregations, the actual people that are the saints, are just normal people, right? Like they probably don't agree with you, but just treat them like normal people, like, because they are, like, and you got to understand how big of a deal it is to do what they do in a lot of situations. It's like, it's not like me and Jay were talking about, and I'm sure it's not just something they do. It means a lot. And so coming at it from that point of view, it's not just telling them, oh, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, is not going to change them. Especially, you have to understand that it's always a personal thing. Like, they have to be searching for it. If they're not searching themselves, they're not going to change. And so really only thing that atheists can really do is just be there and like be available, have the information available,
Mm-hmm.
easily accessible. And that's the way it was with me. Is like YouTube. Like, I literally, I mean, I haven't even read any atheist books. It's all atheist YouTube channels. Like, and that's all it took.
Sure.
I'll say that I had a playlist before all this, even before I started in the comment section, and it really increased my confidence because I noticed that anytime I was talking to somebody that was having doubts or whatever, I felt like I had a video. I was like, oh, I know there's something on my playlist, and I would just pull it up and then I'd send them a link. And then eventually, like when I got to know a person and I trust them, I would just send them a link to the playlist, and people started to really be like thanking me like profusely. And I was like, really? Because all I was doing was like, I'd go through a video and I had two playlists. One is called Critical Atheism and the other is called Theology. And depending on, you know, whether it leaned one way or the other, you know, I put it on the appropriate list. And then I started sharing that. I was like, oh, people think this is like a great resource somehow. But you're absolutely right. Just having, like you said, having it available and easy to share. Yeah, go ahead.
So, okay. Does that somehow like how do you do that and people not get mad because like at you as a person, as a member of the church, like, and you're sort of like spreading false doctrine?
Well, that's a great question. Yeah, especially because, to be honest, I go to a church where a lot of people don't believe in evolution. I think for me it is they don't question my sincerity. And I think knowing that I'm a scientist, being able to tell them, hey, I'm just trying to find the truth, and this is what, you know, and I've really found sort of a Christian way to phrase it, right? Like, to me, I say, if you're a Christian, you believe everybody has their sin struggle. And I just tell them, I have the worst sin struggle of all. I have the one sin struggle that most Christians find unforgivable, right? I struggle with doubt. And I think, believe it or not, they recognize that because, one, I think they all, in some level, know that feeling, right? Real Christians have been walking in their life. They know doubt's a real thing and that real believers struggle with, right? So it's on the list with alcohol and porn addiction and everything else. And they all do kind of know we are all a sinner. And so they kind of relate it to, you know, hate the sin, not the sinner. So they go, this person's working through, you know, maybe some addiction. This person over here is working through some financial issues. This person's getting out of a bad relation. This person's over here is our dedicated and fearless, faithful drummer, but he's a scientist and he's got his skepticism and his doubt. And the participation, to your point, helps because it's not easy to dismiss. When you see, I love being live, right? We're not recording, right? So there's no faking what we do. There's no take two. There's no, oh, we stitched this together in Pro Tools and made them sound good. So believe it or not, your ability to play those songs from beginning to end in real time, week in and week out, shows that you are dedicated enough to this church to put in that time and to show up ready. You can't fake it. You can't just say it. It's very costly. Yeah. You have to really put your time in, and it shows. And so the whole conversation's different. And I tell this even to my science college. I say, if you tried to do what I could do, you probably couldn't do it because you don't know the culture that well. But without the high level participation of being on the worship team, that bridge is not there, right? Because of that, because of the dedication, though. Yeah.
Right. Well, it looks like I'm gonna have to hop off here.
Yeah. This was a great comment. We'll do it more. Yeah, for sure. Great conversation. Thank you. This was awesome. Like I said, I'm really honored that you reached out, and I'll let my one-back friend just say anything else he has before you go.
Thank you, and keep us informed.
Yeah. Keep us posted. Keep us posted for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Well,
thank you so much. Have a great day.
I'd love to come back on sometime. So just
please
let me know.
Yeah, anytime. So here's what I'll say. I'll say this. We'll reach out and maybe check. We'll plan an episode maybe in a couple months just to give you some time, and then we'll check back in. And then in the meantime, I'll make sure you have our stuff. And then if we're ever doing something that you find interesting, I'll drop a link. Just let me know you're in the chat, and you can hop in and be a panelist and just discuss anything you happen to want to talk about.
And if you need to interrupt that in order to get some things off your chest, feel free to do it.
Absolutely, yeah. If you just,
because you might need that. You might need that. Feel free
absolutely.
To do it.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you. I appreciate
You're
that.
welcome.
Yeah, and I'll reach out about that collab too. I want to make a cover, so we'll come up with a song. I'll make a track and send it to you.
I'm actually in the middle of doing a cover right now with my brother. I can send you the link.
Yeah, what song is it?
It's you probably don't know. It's called I have it right up here. It's
sure.
It's an obscure artist. It's Overthinking by Joey David.
No, never heard it. Send it to me.
Yes, I'll send it to you. Oh, do you have Apple Music or Spotify?
I think I could do Spotify.
Okay, cool. All right.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Statton.
You tell me what you think.
All right. Yeah, okay. We'll do.
Bye.
Bye. All right, so that was fantastic. That was super cool. That was great. All right, we can retire now, right? That was like a peak. That was like, we're good. That's it. We did what we set out to do when we started this show, and that's it, folks. So this will be our last episode. But nah, man, appreciate you. It's up to you. Do you want to talk about that more? Do you want to get into are Christians making the world the worst place? What do you want? Do you tired? Do you want to call it a early episode?
I'm tired, but no, I got too much to do after. So I did make some notes, and I'm sure this is a topic we will revisit because there's going to be some great societal issue that'll come up, and it'll. You
do want to just make it the topic for next week?
No.
Oh, you want to do something else next week?
Sure. Let's do something else. But I have some notes. Yeah. So
okay. Sure.
The way this always works between our audience chiming in and your comments, there goes an hour really fast. So it's okay. And I have lots of links up on my screen, and I think I ought to do this Cult of Dusty style in the future, where he just has pages, dozens of links that he goes through to move through his show. I think that's actually a pretty good way to do it. So,
almost like an Aaron Raw type. Yeah, it's great.
Oh, does Aaron Raw do the same thing? Okay.
He does more like almost like a PowerPoint, but he's a little bit too fast. But go ahead.
Okay. Well, we will remember the Susan Turpin, I believe, from last week gave us this Lamentations 3:32.
Fantastic memory.
But though he caused grief, yet he will have compassion according to the multitude of his mercies. So this is a reference to God and suffering. I think to some degree, with my question that's been on my lamp here in the hotel for weeks, are Christians subconsciously making the world a worse place in order to increase suffering, because suffering is a sign that God loves you and is looking out for you? So let's go down to a scripture where it's actually telling us that God will chasten who he loves. Okay. And you will find that in Hebrews 12, verse 6. So let me try to go back a little. Read full chapter. I typically, for the show, I use Bible Gateway. So I'll start in verse 3 of Hebrews 12. For consider him, capital H, that's Jesus, who endured such hostility from sinners against himself, lest you become weary and discouraged in your soul. You have not yet resisted bloodshed, striving against sin, and you have forgotten the exhortation which speaks to you as sons. My son, do not despise the chastening of the Lord, nor be discouraged when you are rebuked by him. For whom the Lord loves, he chastens, and scourges every son whom he receives.
One of the first episodes of Late-Night Counter-Apologetics I did when I was really like, okay, this is going to be my why I no longer go to church sermons like this series, right? Mm-hmm. Was Joel Osteen, Victory Begins in the Dark. Right? And that was his whole thing, was that, you needed to be anticipating this season of darkness, and you were supposed to trust in the Lord and be worshiping Him and praising Him in advance, and that. So it was, you know. I sort of jokingly, my joking punchline for that episode was, have you been looking for the light? Just a glimmer of hope, just that little bit of, you may have been doing it wrong,
Well, we are told, Jesus is the way,
the truth, and the light.
And the light.
Yeah. But first, the victory begins, right? That's what I mean. Like you might be looking for the light, but first you're gonna get the darkness.
I can hear Joel Osteen say it. Today's is victory begins in the dark.
Yeah, I mean
he's gonna sound so enthusiastic, and he's gonna convince you from the first second that this must be absolutely wonderful. I should pay attention. He's got that.
Well, you know what?
The demeanor about him.
It really was, done with that sort of irresistible charm and salesmanship, but I think that's man, I'm starting to really feel like the kindness thing with Christianity is really like the poison pill, right? Because it's where all the real heavy stuff gets in there. And to me, like, I'm thinking about this Joel Osteen sermon, and it's like he made it sound so wonderful and compelling, but it was really this sort of grim promise of chastening and suffering, and it's gonna get worse before it gets better. And so it was, he just had a way of making it, wrapped in shiny foil.
Well, he's and YouTube Punk, your comments have not gone unnoticed. Christians seem more about increasing the suffering of others more than themselves. I think this is another hashtag not all Christians moment. Sure. I'll pair that with, but you don't think they are suffering as well. If they were not, then would they be causing suffering for others? Well, people cause suffering for others unbeknownst to them. I own several things that were made in foreign countries, and they maybe have made by child labor in sweatshops. And I don't know that, right? And believe me, I'm not the kind of guy who goes digging for that sort of thing to be socially responsible as far as that goes. To make sure I'm not buying products that weren't made in sweatshops where people don't get breaks, you have to pee in a bottle, and little kids, instead of going to school, they go to work. I don't know that. I think part of the issue is that many Christians that are vocal don't understand the whole story within their Bible. They don't understand all the connections within the Bible, and so they may have been encouraged to latch on to a particular piece and just try to get society to change. Can you Pocket Locker put up 2 Corinthians chapter 6, 14 to 18?
Yeah, give me 1 sec.
Okay.
Let me pull that off of there so I can pull up the Bible Gateway. You said 2 Corinthians?
Yeah, 2 Corinthians. Chapter 6, 14 to 18.
All right, hang on.
Okay, YouTube Punk, I'm not so sure. I think they're oblivious to their own self-inflicted suffering. Now, we can say that about a lot of people, not just, those of any particular faith. I think that's part of the human
condition. Wait, which chapter did you say?
6, 2 Corinthians.
6, yep.
Mm-hmm.
And then what verse?
14 to 18.
All right. I guess let's maybe make this a bit bigger. I feel like I'm moving.
One day I'm going to learn how to do this myself. It's not today, though. I'm not going to learn today.
It's fun. All right. Do not be yoked, warning against idolatry. Do not be yoked together with unbelievers, for what do righteousness and wickedness have in common? Or what fellowship can light have with darkness? What harmony is there between Christ and Belial? Or what does a believer have in common with an unbeliever? What agreement is there between the temple of God and idols? For we are the temple of the living God, as God has said, I will live with them and walk among them, and I will be their God, and they will be my people. Therefore, come out from them and be separate, says the Lord. Touch no unclean thing, and I will receive you. And I will be a father to you, and you will be my sons and daughters, says the Lord Almighty.
Okay, so I want to focus on verse 17. Therefore, come out from them and be separate from them.
Right.
Okay, and then it says the Lord, and touch nothing unclean. Well, with the amount of pork being eaten in this country, although we have standards now, but I think this is a key thing that is utterly left out. We have people who are actively trying to have the Bible taught in school, and yet many of those people won't give equal time to the other faith traditions.
No.
But that isn't fair. That isn't fair. And what they often don't understand, and I had to explain this to my brother. I said, do you realize if you do that, this is a country where people will sue. They'll sue the government, they'll sue the school system to get the other religions also taught with equal time in those same schools.
All right, well, let me be honest with you, and I think some people in our audience will be interested to hear this. For me, the whole cult of the flying man thing came from sort of a healthy political social admiration of Satanists. And what it was the realization that there were certain things that you really can't oppose with just garden variety atheism, right? You know, if you just say, I don't believe there's a God, well, you don't have any real religious claims. So, for instance, Aaron Ra recently appeared recently appeared at the Iowa State Capitol Day of Prayer or whatever, right? So there's a bunch of Christians praying in the rotunda for the National Day of Prayer. Well, he appeared there with the Satanists, and they did their prayer. There were Satanists who recently opposed the abortion law because bodily autonomy is like very important to their religious traditions, right? So a lot of us say, oh, bodily autonomy is like this implied thing in the Constitution because of life, liberty, and it's messy there. It's messy there, right? But she was able to say, no, it's my religion that says my bodily autonomy is sacred. And it was really interesting because the clip I saw was actually a super conservative body of like right-wingers who you could tell were furious with her. And they went to ask her questions about being a devil worshiper and being like evil and all this. But the guy who was in charge had to keep them all in order. Like, nope, keep it to the subject. Nope, stick to the matter.
Is this the one where the woman was asked, does her religion believe in human sacrifice?
Yeah.
And I'm going, dude, if you're a Christian, your religion literally is based on human sacrifice.
Exactly. It's just so bad. But no.
By the way, he who has no sin may cast the first stone.
Yeah.
This dude was not realizing he should have hit himself upside the head with that one.
Yeah, so bad. But yeah, so it really was sort of like there's actually something, like you said, to the way they're trying to exclude those other faiths. We talk about this a lot because, I deal with the evolution and creationism, and it's like one of the things we teach our students is the Raelians, right? They're people who have a naturalistic creation myth based on like, an alien super race that created, life on Earth and all this stuff. Well, why don't we give equal time to that? that
yes,
would,
by all means.
right. So they would never go for that. So that was literally part of the thing. It was like, okay, yeah, this is a parody, it's a joke. We just think it's funny. But the reason we were like, no, we should do this was because at least symbolically, it would give us a lot of those efforts to send those letters, do those kind of petitions to say, oh no, we actually, our religion says we support science. No, our religion says critical thinking and skepticism are our values. Do you see what I'm saying? Like that became, so we were like, let's rock with that and see if it's got some legs. And then wouldn't you know, lo and behold, how low the bar is for becoming an actual real church in this country.
Oh, it's you don't do much. Now, I went to the IRS's website and I looked it up.
Yeah, it's pretty
what are the
easy.
requirements? And you know, it's good that they put that there so people who are looking for that have a guide.
Right.
But I think when I read it, I says, you know, I feel if anyone is considering using these guidelines, they should really contact someone there and ask more questions. Because if they do that, then they know they're going to be in compliance in the best possible way.
Right.
Because, like it mentioned, there being a Sunday school program, I don't know that the Satanists have it on Sunday. Could it be on a different day?
No. Yeah, I've looked into a lot of it. There's a lot. It's easy. You don't have to have all of them. It's just what that's actually a list of is they're saying these are the things that churches that typically define a church. And if you have like a good bunch of them and then can make a strong case as far as like we've got the strong beliefs and the creed and the whatever, then you're good. And so we've actually sat there and made sure that we've checked off pretty much all of them, right? Now there's some that'll come like with, like you get, like when you get legally recognized, you can ordain other ministers and stuff like that. But most of them are pretty, you meet regularly, do the rituals. That's actually why I started doing certain rituals every Sunday service. I do them, right? It's like we've always got a communion ritual. We always got to, that way that's like check. Okay. Yeah. But yeah, it's fun. But you know what you would love about it? We got our hands on these texts, right? And started to envision what the flying man scriptures look like. And immediately your whole thing, which I can't believe I'm confessing this, about the creative writing of it just immediately jumped out at me. Right? Like imagining that this was like the coolest Dungeons and Dragons group ever, right? Getting together and playing the Pesher Bible Code and figuring out what the true, you know what I mean though, right?
It literally has both dungeons and dragons
yeah.
in the Bible.
Yeah.
It literally has dungeons. Yeah, Joseph and Paul were in dungeons. Isaiah was in a pit of mire that possibly could be considered something of a dungeon.
But no, in full honestly, it's like gave me a new level of sympathy. Like this is really fascinating. This is really fun. This must have been really exciting and captivating to people to try to figure this out. No, it wasn't this God. It was this God. Well, you didn't read this scripture, but you didn't read like that's what we do with this YouTube stuff, right? That was the YouTube debates before YouTube debates.
I think at times it was quite difficult for the winners of the Nobel Priest Prize that came up with many of the things of the Bible, because they had to have a sit down where they talked about, hi Otangelo, good to see you, sir.
Hey Otangelo, hey Spooky.
I
hey
think
YouTube.
There's a lot of objections that have to be handled, and how do you handle those? You just write more scripture.
Right.
Look, someone like me who would challenge why God doesn't do A, B, C, or D, you got, hey, no problem. My rain falls on the just and the unjust. That's what God's rain does. God also, you're not supposed to, I'm told I'm not supposed to test God. I'm not supposed to put God to the test.
Right.
Elsewhere, I'm told when it comes to contributing my money, bringing my whole tithe into the storehouse, I'm told to go right ahead and test God.
Wait, I
think what is it? They just learn how to handle objections, and then you put it into the record, and you always have something to give to people who challenge you.
For me, I actually felt, and I think this is, again, I think the Catholic Church, at least Jesuit schools, do a great job of this. And that is they sort of teach you all of this stuff in a way that does the apologetics for you. So for me, apologetics was new to me because I didn't understand why anybody thought this stuff about the Bible was controversial. Like, in other words, if you would have told me, the Bible contains, just these stories and parables that are just too uniquely convenient as, counter arguments to the objections of the faith, I would have said something like, yeah, and the church fathers who decided what was being the canon made sure of it. Like, that's what it's supposed to be there for, so that the believer will have a resource, to like, what do you think the Bible's for? You know what I mean? Like, it was, so to me, somebody had to teach me like that was bad for some reason, and maybe somehow that meant that it wasn't. I was like, well, no, it's a religious text. What do you think you're reading? An instruction manual on how to put something, like, you know what I mean? It was just, to me, I thought people were making genre mistakes, right?
It is an instruction manual on how to assemble things too. In parts. Here's how I want all this stuff in the temple to be made. That goes right. It goes over that, and oddly enough, after being told allegedly not to make graven images, when they built this temple, it's loaded with them. Yeah. So I'm like, come on, guys, this isn't being presented to us in a way that it could be believed as factual, even. All the time. There's things out of order. They clearly made stuff up later.
So let me ask you this. Do you think, because the only part of this I struggle with is really the intentional. And I certainly do think that Christians are causing a lot of suffering. And I think part of what makes me angry even sometimes about our community is that I still feel like most Christians are victims. And I'm not okay with that. Speaking for myself, I was never willing to knowingly go along with something I did not believe to be true. And so I can genuinely say that I wanted to know the truth. I definitely, didn't consent to being misinformed the way I was. And to be honest, I find it quite painful to think about all of the time I was misinformed. And what bugs me the most is when people basically tell me, well, I wasn't a crazy radical Christian, or I wasn't a problem, so my faith wasn't a problem. In other words, it's like, well, I wouldn't have tried to deconvert somebody like you because you weren't a problem. You were a nice guy, so if you want to be a Christian, that's your business. And I'm like, dude, I was still wrong. Do I deserve the truth less because I'm a nice guy? Do I deserve the truth less because I'm not a dangerous radical in some way, right? I felt like if all of that, and then I wonder, like, was there something about my personality or my professional journey that opened me up to those things? Because then I really think, well, then that's super unfair, right? That you have these other people who are just really nice people, and then maybe they don't get the opportunities that I had, but then like other people don't tell them that their religion is false because they're just such nice people. Like my grandmother, I've never met anybody. I don't think Matt Dillahunty would counter-apologize my grandmother, right? Because she's just so sweet and nice, he probably wouldn't bother. But she's the person who probably needs it the most. And he's probably the person who, if he decided to give her the time of day, might be able to really get through to her in a way. You see what I'm saying? And that's why I'm like, I know that they're nice, and I know you want to, go along and get along, but nice ain't gonna make it true.
Well, I think none of us are without empathy for the Christian who's sitting there in the pew believing everything they're being told, believing read in the Bible, that it's factual. And, I'll say, even if it's not factual, they can have ways where it's truly relevant to what they're enduring or what someone they love is enduring in life. and it may offer a bit of correction to them. So it has that power, even if it's all allegory. And I say this a lot. Its true power is because it is an allegory, because it is relatable.
Agreed. Yeah.
To modern times, it is absolutely relatable.
If it was history, if it was really history, it'd just be history.
It would just be, well, I mean, look, we can, on JFK's tombstone or some memorial for him, past his prologue. I think that's what it says. But oddly enough, I'm quoting a man who said, "Surely on this earth, God's work must be our own." But it's I think it's something to consider. It has a value. What they believe has a value. I think it's just, the book is on the wrong shelf at the library.
Yes.
I think that's probably as Jim put it, and they don't necessarily understand that or want to believe it that way, because they say, well, look, you can't strip the relevance of this book away from me. Like we had it with Statton, right? His relationships with the people, in his church,
absolutely.
That was more valuable to him than his relationship with God. I think that's most people in church.
Me too. Me too.
And I think most people probably, if you had a quiet meal with them, they would admit it. Like, yeah, that's true. And they might kind of be sad, like, why isn't God more relevant to me than this old lady who's never even been to my house?
I'll tell you another thing. Remember I told you with my church, I'm always like, oh, we about to dunk these fools in the water, and I'm excited about it. I had another one, which is I tell people, you're not about that cult life. And I meant that, like, to say I am. Like, I genuinely think, like, I was joking with my friends, like, y'all are straight up into Jesus cult, and I love it because of that, intentional relationships, and we're a family, and we do. I felt lonely in here. I tell my college, I said, look, I was in grad school for 10 years. I was lonely the whole time. I was in my church, playing with them for a year, and I never felt more surrounded by community. I never had more people to talk to, more people to do things with, and so it's like, I was about the life. Do you know what I mean? I'm like he said, I have no reason to want to. Why would I want? We have a good time. Ain't nobody here bothering me. Everybody's super nice to me. All my friends are here. I would be like, a lot of times, even when I wasn't playing, I'd saunter over and just hang out behind the soundboard on Sunday morning. People are like, oh, I thought this was your Sunday. I was like, yeah, but I ain't seen y'all in a few days. So, I could. When this is over, I'm going to just I'll walk across the street and go back to sleep. So it ain't really, ain't nothing for me to come over and say hi for a little bit. And, that's just how it is. You know what I mean? Like,
well, humans need relationships.
Yeah.
We need friendships. Scott makes a great comment, because God is just a story. The older woman is actually there. You can get a genuine hug from that old lady who smells nice and has candy in her purse.
Yes.
If you need some.
Yes.
She's truly there for you. And if you need a ride because you have some procedure at the hospital, she's probably going to be the one who takes you.
Yes.
That sort of thing. The community can be quite powerful, and I think that often is the attraction. That's not bad. That's not dangerous. But when I see a Greg Locke, he takes that, and he has the power to mislead his congregation in his anger and frustration, and make them dangerous people. Just like anybody else out there who's telling people, you need to go out and be some sort of terrorist or whatever. Why would you ever say that? I think that same energy, you use prayer and not action. Whereas I tell the average, person who isn't being told to go out and be a terrorist, no, you use action and not prayer. If you want to see things changed, come up with a procedure or, a set of protocols to show everybody else why your way is better than the way it currently is. You convince enough people, things will change. They simply will change. Now, in a manner of speaking, that has been the mission of Jesus. Hey, I'm presenting a better way to interpret the law, the Old Testament. I'm showing up here on earth as an example to lead people to salvation. My dad's made this fire and he's going to not real fond of the idea, so I'm going to sacrifice to appease him. And he said, all you have to do is believe in me, and that's good enough for him. So how about it? Get on board, little children. I'm going to go down to the cross and get sacrificed, and the rest of you just believe in me. And by the way, I have a list of things I'd like you to do in order to show me your honor. Do these things in remembrance of me, so to speak. And I'll see you again in my kingdom. Not the kingdom we read about last week, where that stuff never really happened fully.
So,
but,
you know what? You know what, though? I just realized, I think for me to be charitable, I would say, are Christians making the world place? Well, it's subconsciously was the question,
that's what I
right?
have. Are Christians subconsciously doing it?
Oh, see, that's interesting, because I was going to say I could say no to consciously a lot of times.
I would say no a lot of the time.
But subconsciously, I'm at yes. And I think the powerful question for a Christian would be, here's the question. Should you change your beliefs if you are making the world a worse place?
You can change your behavior. I don't know that you need, if you hold that belief and you sort of maintain that belief in silence, and you don't use that belief to abuse another person. Let's say many Christians will tell us that every word of the Bible is true, and what is it, good for rebuke, instruction, that sort of thing, instruction in righteousness, that sort of thing, and yet you're not stoning adulterers to death, right? You may believe that, but if you don't put that into practice, you can hold that belief.
Well, that's kind of why I asked, because I think it could be a gateway to the outsider test of faith, because you can sort of ask then about, well, what about other religions? And I think a lot of them would be willing to tell you they think the other religions are false. Okay, well, do you think a lot of the people, you could ask them then the same question. Do you think Muslims are subconsciously making the world a worse place? Because of what they believe. And a lot of them would say yes, right? So the point is just to get them to maybe accept the idea, because for a lot of the Christians I know, the answer is no, because God is by definition good, all good, the whole thing. So following him by definition has to be good for sort of their salvation, but also like good for the planet, good for society, good for everybody else. Mm-hmm. And I just think the first step maybe is even getting them to acknowledge, maybe not about their own religion, but that it's possible to, genuinely hold a belief and the world be worse because you're faithful to that. Mm-hmm. Because it, at least to me, that was the start of it. Because I don't think truth is always the motivation we'd like it to be. I think everybody says they want the truth, but some people really don't. And I think it's smart of you to figure out when that is. And I think a lot of people are needy. And I think they need certain things like validation, or they need to believe that they're smart, or they need to believe that people depend on them, or maybe they need to believe that, they're a good person, right? So a lot of times where I would come at somebody like that is I wouldn't try to get them to, well, I don't think anything you believe is true. I would more get them to, do you genuinely think it's good for people to, base their decisions on ideas that they can't demonstrate to other people? Right? I'm trying to get them less in the truth and what's a fact and what's sufficient evidence. I don't think that's going to appeal to them. I want to go straight to, I think this God is good all the time thing means a lot to you, right? And so if I can get you to question that first, right? That's where I'm gonna go, because I think that's that's where I would go, because I think that's gonna cause more cognitive dissonance. Hang on, what do you mean? Because if you make a person feel like, I'll tell you this, a lot of people in my family, you would treat them like they're saints, right? Because of their faithfulness and they're so kind and sweet. So
All
if
who
you
are
genuinely,
saved are saints. That's what the
yes.
Bible says.
So if you genuinely treated them like, I think you are a nasty person. Like, how dare you insist on praying for me? Right? Now, you would feel weird, like your skin would crawl. You could never do it. But to me, you would do more for them. I would send you $1,000. Right? Because they've never been challenged like that. And
I need
taking them
names
off
and phone numbers.
Yeah.
I want to buy, there's a Plymouth Barracuda. There's 2 of them. I'm currently in talks. I might not get the Mitsubishi. I might go with the Barracuda. I'll take the money.
But it's just, you get what I'm saying though? It's taking them off that pedestal and sort of taking the kid, I'm taking the gloves off. That would, because I'd get the call. I ran into this person and I didn't, they were telling me I can't be righteous for believing in God because, how could I be righteous for telling other people to believe something I didn't know was true? Like it would trouble them, not because you didn't agree with them, not because but because you told them it wasn't good, right? You undermine the value that they place on themselves through their faith.
All right, let's talk about this. I think a lot of people, one of the reasons there are so many mental health issues in this country, or in this world maybe, is that people don't value themselves properly. I think if a person is praying for you, this is one of those things where you're wrong.
Sure.
I'll still take the $1,000 and make the calls. The nicer used Mopar vehicle you buy, the less you spend on fixing it typically. So I'm looking at replacing some floors,
I see.
which is $4,000. I'm not happy. See, Scott.
Yeah.
Scott might be a Mopar owner or be referring to how to treat people. So we do have issues with this where people have a poor idea about their own personal worth, their own value, right? Not values, their own value, that they are, what's that from The Help, that movie? I'm good, kind, and people like me, or whatever it is. That's true. That Stuart Smalley thing, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me. That's true. And if we can have healthier people, we'll have fewer school shooters. We'll have fewer mass murderers, because they'll not only respect that in themselves, which I think there's a lack of self-respect from people like that, but they'll respect because they'll know, like, you know what, those people feel like, and maybe that's a path to not needing to be heard by others. That self-love, that self-care, that self-respect. Maybe that's what's needed more. I'm sure our audience and yourself have listened to person after person saying, well, what's really needed is love. What's really needed is the values of the Bible, or we need to teach Christ in school. And I'm going, no. Because if you do that, somebody like me, there's teenage me that's going to raise his hand and go, may I read something from the Bible? And then read the most horrifying things from the Old Testament. Like, but wait, this is what God commanded. If you wonder why we have problems, it's because something like this, according to Jesus, can be forgiven just by asking. There's no punishment for this person if they repent. Right? There's no punishment for them.
Right.
It's that simple. You can be the worst kind of human being ever. Just repent. If you're baptized, you're good. Hey,
That's it, but that's another one, because I think that really undermines a person's sense of fairness and justice. And I think that was another thing I started to think about. I mean, I now think substitutionary atonement is one of the most immoral concepts I can think of. And so part of what I guess I'm always getting at is, man, I just wish somebody told me these things sooner.
Well, I want to riff on that for a moment. So there's scriptures in the Bible, like the earth endureth, and that we sort of don't have to take care of the world because, like, climate change and things like that. Here's one of those ways when maybe subconsciously they're making the world a worse place.
Right.
God is going to take care of it. Guys, we're supposed to be, the Bible even says we're supposed to be caretakers of the earth. It doesn't
Yeah,
say
I got to be
you have
honest
to
with you.
abuse the planet you're living on. Go ahead.
That's one of my main things right now that I am so motivated to like deconvert everybody tomorrow for is I have one life to live. I'm already probably halfway through it. That happened surprisingly quickly. The back end's gonna feel like a doozy. You know, it's all downhill. And so I personally don't feel like I've got time for that. And I feel like there's a certain urgency that I hope doesn't just get, worn out of me as the years go by. But yeah, I often feel that, right? That when it comes to these big challenges we face, we need all hands on deck, like yesterday. And if y'all can stop playing around any moment now, it would be a really good time, because we need everybody like immediately, post haste, as they'd say.
I really feel that there's a responsibility there, and not something else we should throw away. The responsibility for believers is not something else that they should throw away either and leave it on the ground, or just
let me ask you this
take care
question.
of itself.
Do you have a responsibility as a non-believer to counter-evangelize?
That's a fantastic question. I would say I don't. But at the same time, if someone is telling me something that is nonsense, and let's just focus on the environmental issue, that I don't have to, I shouldn't need to recycle. Maybe I shouldn't need to drive a more fuel efficient car. I even in my truck, I'm putting a modern engine in it, not just because I got it at a great price, but it pollutes less than the Chevy 350 that was in my truck. I'm probably going to put catalytic converters on a truck that by law is not required to have them.
Right.
Why? Because it makes it burn cleaner. And this isn't a vehicle I'm driving 7 days a week. I have a Prius, to do a 60-mile plus commute back and forth to where I usually have my offices. So, it's okay. I am taking some steps. I'm in the process of reprogramming my water. It's not a meter, but the thing that tells my sprinklers when to turn on and turn off, because we're in the middle of a drought back west. So I'm like, a bunch of my neighbors are letting their yards go, and I'm like, oh, though I like a nice lush lawn, it's not worth it. I'm not even there. Right. It's not worth it. I got a great big bag of seed that's really amazing grass seed. You know what? When it's not an issue, maybe I can grow another lawn, or maybe I'll just find another way to make the front of my house prettier.
Right.
So okay, I can choose another way. I do feel I have a responsibility, but when I hear someone wantingly being wasteful, telling other people not to be concerned, or in speaking in a way where they're encouraging others, not just telling others not to be concerned, but encouraging them. Be careless. Go ahead and be wasteful. That is utterly wrong. My children don't exist yet, but when they do, I want them to have the best planet Earth possible, because they're not going to live anywhere else. They're going to be born here. They're going to grow old here. They're going to die here. This is where it's at for human beings.
My take on it is that I come at the obligation a bit differently. So I would always say nobody has a personal obligation to do anything for anybody else. But I feel obligation in a couple senses. Number one, I do feel the need to reflect an education. So an example is, I've recently been trying to make baby steps to go out, but when I go indoors, especially from around people I don't know, I still wear a mask. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes I'll notice that I'll be like the only person wearing a mask indoors. Mm-hmm. And kind of bugged me at first. And then I thought to myself, well, if I took stock of, what I know based on where I've gotten and being a professional biologist, might I also be the only one in the room with that background, and might not only be the only actual professional college biologist in the room. Yeah, that's probably also the case, right? And so maybe it's okay if I make decisions that nobody else in the room makes. And then I remember thinking to myself the last time I went out, well, maybe part of what I can do is normalize that for everybody else. In other words, so I didn't act weird about it, and I won't act weird about the fact that nobody else has one on, and I'll try to have conversations as naturally as I possibly can, and I'll speak a little bit louder so that no one's struggling to hear me through a mask, so that I don't make anything, and I tried to just make it, and I found that everybody was just kind of okay with it, and
sure they are.
And maybe you're just taking one step to making it normalized, and I kind of feel that way about it. Like, it's okay for me to maybe normalize not believing and normalize talking about it, and if I have resources for other people that it would help them, maybe it's okay for me to share them. And then certainly now I really feel in this community that I do have a professional responsibility to correct people when they are perverting science.
You do. And you're well equipped to do it.
Yeah. That's literally, that's in the job description, right? So
yeah, we see Shannon Q do this she's the wrong person to come up against when you're trying to talk about psychology and mental health and what you think you know. Yeah, because she'll start whipping out the terms on you. Yeah, trying to get you to.
I've seen it. It's amazing. It's amazing.
She will bring wrath down on the mental wrath to make you look like you utterly don't know what you're talking about. And a lot of those people who challenge her don't.
Yeah, and what's crazy, I think about, she probably feels the same way, is like when I have some of my interactions, I go and I talk to my mentors about it, and they're going, you could have done this. Oh, think about this next time. Think about them coming from this practice. So it's like, not only am I coming at you from, but I got mentors who will hear what I do and be like, oh, Jay, we're gonna make you even sharper. You think if your audience think you got at them last time, wait till you get at them next time. You know what I mean? Because they're still trying to make me. They see me as young, and you got your career ahead of you. Right? Yeah.
Well,
exactly.
I would say when you're being challenged on your disbelief, or you're correcting someone's ignorance, and I wanted to say this to Statton as well. Please go ahead and ask your questions. I did tell him that, but ask these people questions in a Socratic way that reveal just how little they know, and where they're making a guess, and feel free to say, if you're in a position to do it, can you Google that? Is that really true? And if they Google it right in front of you, and they show right in front of you, wait, it's not what I mean. Like here, I have you put if I'm going to quote a scripture, I often have you put it on the screen.
Yeah.
That's so if a person is watching us and they're doubting what I'm saying, you can go look at this yourself. It's right there on the screen.
Yeah, I'll give you a quick example because I should probably wrap. I got a meeting at 5:30. But I read this book called The Emperor Wears No Clothes by Jack Herr in college. It's a book about the war on drugs. It's like an anti-war on drugs book. It's like why marijuana is fine or whatever. But what I loved about this book, because I was just an undergrad, so I didn't know about scholarship and citing and scientific stuff. But what I loved about this book was he would tell a story or he would talk about something, and on the opposite page was always like a copy of it or photographic evidence, because he was laying out this super huge case, right? And he thought, I have to show you everything. I'm not going to say one thing. And it was like a early, now we pull everything up and it's so fast with the internet. But I remember it struck me that his book was written that way. And also, about the James Randi challenge? Yes. Where he was like, oh, I'll give you this book by Jack Herr called The Emperor Wears No Clothes. It had the same thing. Matter of fact, there's a strain named after him, a very famous strain. People don't understand that's why the strain is named after that. It's named after this guy because he's a big hero in the movement. But he had like a challenge like that on the back of his book. Like was 6 figures or whatever, his own money, if you could undermine anything he said. But that's the type of I'm gonna show you the receipts. I'm gonna put my money where my mouth is, type of thing. That as a young person, it moved. I was like, this guy is serious. Oh, you know what he's saying a lot in here that's new to me, but I gotta take him up on this because he's showing me the receipts. Like, yeah, so it's definitely huge, man. I want to thank you so much for doing this. I want to thank Statton, folks. I have a Christopher Hitchens audiobook commentary at 10 o'clock on the Jay Bundy channel. Late-Night Counter-Apologetics, 1 a.m. Sunday morning next week. But hopefully I'll see you guys later tonight. After we go off the air, I will be live on all the Pocketlocker86 channels, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and Facebook.
And could you tell about the Discord? There was a question about, do we have a Discord?
Oh. We have... What was the pathetic story? I don't remember which story. Sorry. But we're gonna set up a Discord. I didn't know if you wanted a Discord. We have a channel on my Discord for streams and stuff, but do you want to set up a separate Discord for our program?
I don't even really understand what that is. I know you gave me a brief showing of it last week.
Yeah. It's like a chat app. I'll set one up and I'll see if we get people over there and then we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I'll get one set up. It'll actually be kind of nice because I think the bot that we use can send the chat over there. So it's just another platform people can hang out. And it's actually nice because you don't have to be live. So it'll be like a thing where if people start seeing messages popping up in that chat, then they'll know we're live. So that'll be helpful. So we'll get that going. We'll also get the bot going and some other stuff. I've also got some cool transitions for us that I've been working on. I just didn't want to throw too much at the stream because we keep things pretty simple here. So there's no need to. But yeah, we will to make it fun. Appreciate you. Yeah, somebody's already in 100 servers, so for a lot of people, they're already there. So it's a helpful place because all their communities are already there, gathered on Discords. So yeah, thank you guys so much for doing this, and I'll leave it to you to close us out.
Yeah, thanks everyone for contributing comments and questions, and thanks to Statton for coming over and visiting with us. And hopefully it wasn't too much torture. And if any one of you is going to be a guest in the future and you are a Christian, I probably will throw that "what did you learn in church" question at you, because I often learn people have a difficult time answering it.
Yeah, and I could tell you honestly that that was one thing I really liked about being in the connection group, was that you did almost have that conversation every week, and almost everybody had a very meaningful and very different answer. And so, nice. And it also is a way to check in, like, are you just going there or did you really get some? And I actually find that people who really do pay attention to their church are actually very happy that you asked. And I find a lot of people love to tell you, and it's a great way to get into a conversation about faith, because rather than like a challenge or something, you're literally saying, hey, just teach me what was preached about this morning. Give me the summary. Yeah, I'd love to hear it. And yeah, I think it's a great way to go. Thank you guys so much. As always, in the name of Darwin, the Dawkins, and the Christopher Hitchens, signs bless you. Be good to yourselves.
And each other.
Poof.